The first sign something was wrong came from Lucas's grip on my hand tightening as we stepped through our front door. A foreign perfume hung in the air, sweet, cloying, cheap. The kind that announces its presence like an unwanted guest. "Mom?" Lucas whispered, his 8-year-old instincts sharper than mine. I saw them then, designer bags sprawled across our living room floor, clothes spilling out like colorful entrails. A laptop I didn't recognize hummed on our coffee table, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and scattered makeup. "Cassie's here." Mark emerged from the kitchen, wearing that particular smile that always preceded bad news. "She needs to stay with us for a while." My throat constricted. "Lucas, honey, go upstairs and start your homework." "But Mom." "Now, please." Once his footsteps faded, I turned to Mark. "A while?" "She got kicked out of college. She needs support right now, Eve." "She's family." "Your family," I corrected. "Where is she?" "Taking a shower." "Look, I know this is sudden." "Sudden?" "There are strangers' belongings all over my living room." "Did you even consider asking me?" "She's my sister." What was I supposed to do? Call me? Discuss it? Act like we're actually married? The bathroom door opened, releasing a cloud of steam. Cassie appeared, wrapped in my favorite towel, her wet hair dripping on our hardwood floors. "Eve. Thanks so much for letting me crash here." She smiled that practiced smile of hers, the one that never quite reached her eyes. "Mark said you'd be totally cool with it." I looked at Mark, who suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. "Did he now?" "Just until I figure things out," Cassie continued, picking up a bottle of nail polish from her chaos pile. "A few weeks, tops." "Weeks?" The word felt like glass in my mouth. "Or months, depending on how things go." She shrugged, as if discussing the weather. "You know how it is." I did know. I knew exactly how it was with Cassie. Every temporary situation became permanent, every just until stretched into infinity. I'd watched her do this to friends, boyfriends, and now she was here, in my home, wearing my towel, speaking about months like they were minutes. "Mark, kitchen. Now." He followed me, leaving Cassie to paint her nails on my couch. The moment we were alone, I turned on him. "This isn't happening. Eve, please." "She has nowhere else to go." "That's not our problem. She's my sister. And I'm your wife. Lucas is your son. When did we stop being your priority?" The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. In that moment, standing in my kitchen with the smell of Cassie's cheap perfume drifting in, I realized this wasn't just about an unexpected houseguest. This was war. 3 days into Cassie's invasion, I found Lucas eating breakfast alone in the kitchen. The clock showed 7:15 a.m., Mark should have been making his lunch for school. "Where's your father?" Lucas stabbed at his cereal. "He's helping Aunt Cassie set up job interviews on her laptop." Of course he was. I placed my hand on Lucas's shoulder, feeling the tension there. "I'll make your lunch, buddy. Can we have dinner just us tonight? Like before?" The hope in his voice crushed something inside me. "I'll try." But trying wasn't enough. That evening, I walked into chaos. Cassie had invited friends over, 3 women I'd never met sprawled across my living room furniture, drinking wine from my glasses. The air reeked of cigarette smoke despite our strict no-smoking rule. "Eve." Cassie waved from her perch on my favorite armchair. "We're having a little career strategy session. Mark's helping with our resumes." Mark sat cross-legged on the floor, his laptop open, looking more animated than he had in months. "These ladies have amazing business ideas, Eve. Real entrepreneurial spirit." "Where's Lucas?" "Oh, he said he wasn't hungry," Mark replied, not looking up. "He's upstairs." I found our son curled up in bed, homework spread around him, a half-eaten sandwich by his side. My sandwich, the one I'd packed for his lunch. Mom? His voice was small. Is Aunt Cassie going to live here forever? No. I sat beside him, moving his math worksheet aside. This is temporary. Dad likes her better than us. That's not, but I couldn't finish the lie. Instead, I helped him with his multiplication tables, trying to create a bubble of normalcy in this shifting landscape of our home. Later that night, after Cassie's friends had finally left, I cornered Mark in our bedroom. We need to set some boundaries. They're just trying to get their lives together, Eve. Why can't you be more supportive? Supportive? Our son ate dinner alone in his room while you played career counselor to your sister's drinking buddies. Don't be dramatic. Lucas is fine. He's not fine. Nothing about this is fine. I lowered my voice, conscious of the thin walls. 2 weeks, Mark. That's all she gets. Then she needs to find her own place. Or what? The challenge in his voice made something snap inside me. Or I'll make her leave. He laughed, actually laughed. This is my house too. Is it? Because last I checked, my name's the only one on the deed. The words came out before I could stop them, sharp and true. The silence that followed felt like a point of no return. In that moment, I saw something shift in Mark's eyes, something that told me this war was just beginning. The envelope fell from Cassie's purse when I moved it off the kitchen counter. Credit card statements, overdue notices, and something that made my blood freeze, a letter from a gambling addiction support group. The amounts were staggering: $30,000 in credit card debt, $12,000 in personal loans, and multiple payday advances. I was still staring at the papers when Mark came home. What are you doing with Cassie's things? Explaining why she really got kicked out of college. I held up the statements. She wasn't expelled. She couldn't pay tuition because she gambled it away. Mark's face went pale. You had no right. No right? She's living in my house, Mark. Around our son. She's getting help. Is she? Because these statements are from last week. I spread the papers across the counter. Look at the charges: online poker, sports betting, casino withdrawals. She's not stopping. The front door opened. Cassie walked in, phone to her ear, laughing at something. She froze when she saw the papers. I'll call you back, she whispered into the phone. How long? I asked. Eve, please. How long have you been lying to everyone? Cassie's eyes filled with tears. Mark knew. He's been helping me. The world tilted. I turned to my husband. You knew? I've been trying to help her get straight, Mark said. She just needs time. Time? Money, you mean? Our money. A horrible thought struck me. The missing client payments from your business account, that wasn't a bank error, was it? His silence was answer enough. Get out. My voice was steady, surprising even me. Both of you, get out. Eve, be reasonable, Mark stepped toward me. We can work this out. Mom? Lucas stood in the doorway, school bag still on his shoulders. What's happening? Nothing, sweetie, Cassie moved toward him. Your mom's just upset. Don't you dare touch him. The words came out like ice. Lucas, go to your room. But. Now. He ran upstairs, and something in me broke. You brought an addict into our home. Around our child. You gave her our money without telling me. She's family, Mark said, but the words sounded hollow now. No. I pulled out my phone. Family doesn't destroy each other. You have 1 hour to get her out, or I'm calling the police. And Mark? Pack a bag. You can go with her. You can't do this. Watch me. I headed upstairs to Lucas, leaving them standing amid the scattered evidence of their betrayal. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. This wasn't just about saving my home anymore. This was about saving my son from the poison they'd brought into our lives. Behind me, I heard Cassie start to cry, but the sound held no power over me now. Some bridges, once burned, light the way forward. Helen Turner arrived like a storm front, all thunder and righteousness. I opened the door to find her standing there with Mark and Cassie behind her, like children hiding behind their mother's skirts. "This ends now," Helen announced, pushing past me into my home. "We're family. We're family." I closed the door, noting how Lucas had frozen on the stairs, watching. "Until your children stole from me." "Borrowed," Cassie interjected. "I was going to pay it back." "With what? More gambling wins?" Helen's face tightened. "Mark tells me you're throwing them out. Over a simple misunderstanding." $42,000 isn't a misunderstanding. I moved to stand between them and Lucas. "Neither is lying to your spouse or enabling addiction." "Everyone makes mistakes," Helen said. "Mark's father?" "Don't." Mark's voice cracked. "Mom, please." Something shifted in the air. I looked between them, seeing a familiar pain in Mark's eyes. "What about your father?" "Tell her, Mom," Cassie said softly. "Tell her why you're really here." Helen's composure cracked. "Your father's gambling destroyed us. I couldn't save him, but I won't let Cassie go down that path." "By enabling her? By letting her drag my family down too? By keeping her close?" Helen's voice rose. "We lost everything when your father died, Mark. Everything. I won't lose my children too. So you'll sacrifice my child instead?" The pieces clicked into place. "That's why you pushed so hard for Cassie to move in. You knew about the gambling all along." "Eve," Mark stepped forward. "We can fix this. Together." "No." I looked at my husband, really looked at him, and saw the scared little boy who couldn't save his father. "You're not fixing anything. You're repeating history." "Mom?" Lucas called from the stairs. "Is Dad leaving?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Mark turned to our son, but I spoke first. "Yes, honey. Dad and Aunt Cassie need to leave. And Grandmother Turner was just going too." "You can't keep my grandson from me," Helen warned. "Watch me." I pulled out my phone. "Leave now, or I call the police. And then I call the gambling commission about the casino charges on Mark's business credit card." "You wouldn't," Cassie whispered. "Try me." They left, Helen's protests fading down the driveway. But Mark lingered at the door. "Eve, please. He's my son too. Then start acting like a father instead of an enabler." I closed the door on his face, then turned to find Lucas watching me. "Are we going to be okay, Mom?" I pulled him close, feeling his small heart beating against mine. "We already are, baby. We already are." The safe wasn't just empty, it had been emptied. My grandmother's pearls, the bonds, our passports, all gone. In their place lay a crumpled receipt from Paradise Casino, dated 3 days ago. My hands shook as I dialed Mark's number. Straight to voicemail. Again. Again. A text lit up my phone, "Need to talk. Meet at Riley's Diner. Important. Mark." I found him hunched over coffee, looking smaller somehow. Cassie sat beside him, makeup smeared from crying. "Where are they?" I kept my voice low, aware of other diners. "Eve, please," Cassie started. "The pearls, Cassie. My grandmother's pearls." "We can explain," Mark said. "Explain what?" "How you gave her the safe combination. How you helped her pawn my family heirlooms for gambling money." It wasn't like that, Cassie whispered. I was winning. I could have doubled it. But you didn't, did you? The pieces clicked together. That's why you're both here. You lost everything. Mark reached for my hand. I pulled back. We can fix this, he said. I've got a plan. Another plan? Like when you borrowed from your business account? Or when you promised Cassie would be gone in 2 weeks? A waitress approached. I waited until she left before continuing. Where are the pearls? Cassie stared at her coffee. Paradise has a pawn shop. They give better rates to regular players. Regular players. The words tasted like acid. You pawned my grandmother's pearls to a casino. We can get them back, Mark insisted. I just need. If you say money, I swear to God. 10,000, Cassie blurted. That's all. I have a system. I stood up so fast my chair toppled. Other diners turned to stare. Eve, please, Mark grabbed my arm. Think of Lucas. I am thinking of Lucas. I'm thinking about his college fund you probably gave her access to as well. Their faces told me everything. You didn't. Just a loan, Cassie said quickly. Once my system. I yanked free of Mark's grip. I'm calling the police. You can't. Cassie's voice rose hysterically. They'll arrest me. Good. Eve, Mark stepped between us. If you do this, there's no going back. Think about Lucas growing up knowing his aunt's in jail. Better than growing up with gambling addicts stealing his future. I pulled out my phone. You have 24 hours to return everything. Every dollar, every item. Or I file charges. Against your own husband? Mark's voice cracked. You stopped being my husband the moment you chose her over your son. I left them there, walking into the bright afternoon sun. Behind me, I heard Cassie's sobs, Mark's protests, but they meant nothing now. Sometimes burning bridges isn't enough. Sometimes you need to salt the earth too. The Paradise Casino loomed before me, a gaudy monument to desperation. 23 hours had passed since my ultimatum. No calls. No texts. Just silence and a gnawing certainty of what I'd find inside. Security footage confirmed it, Mark and Cassie had been here for hours. I found them at the high-stakes poker table, Cassie's mascara streaked down her face, Mark's hands trembling as he pushed forward their last chips. Eve. Cassie's voice cracked. We're winning it back. All of it. The dealer's face remained impassive as he dealt another hand. I glimpsed the cards, another losing combination. Get up. Both of you. Just one more hand, Mark pleaded. We're so close. To what? Rock bottom? I turned to the dealer. How much have they lost tonight? 47,000, ma'am. My knees nearly buckled. The college fund wasn't enough? Eve, please, Mark grabbed my arm. I can explain. Can you explain to Lucas why he can't go to college? Or why his father and aunt pawned his future for poker chips? A security guard approached. Everything okay here? No. I pulled free from Mark's grip. These two stole from me. I want to press charges. You can't. Cassie lurched forward. Mark, tell her. Eve, think about what you're doing, Mark's voice shook. This will destroy everyone, Lucas's mom, all of us. You already destroyed us. I turned to the guard. They pawned stolen items here. Family heirlooms, bonds, Anne. We sold them. Cassie screamed. Everything. The pearls, the bonds, all of it. There's nothing left. The room spun. I steadied myself against the table. Nothing? We had to, Mark whispered. The system was working, but then. Then what? The house always wins? I laughed, a hollow sound. Congratulations, Mark. You've managed to gamble away not just your son's future, but your entire family. Mom? Lucas's voice cut through the casino noise like a knife. I turned to see Helen standing at the entrance, holding our son's hand. The look of confusion on his face as he took in the scene, his father's disheveled appearance, Cassie's tears. The mountain of lost chips broke something in me I didn't know could break. Is that all our money? Lucas asked, his small voice carrying across the suddenly silent table. I watched Mark crumple, watched Cassie slide to the floor sobbing, watched Helen's face age 10 years in 10 seconds. But it was Lucas's question that echoed in my head, over and over, as I realized we'd all lost far more than money tonight. The house always wins. But tonight, everyone lost. The lawyer's office felt too small for all this betrayal. Mark sat across from me, divorce papers between us, while Helen paced behind him like a caged animal. Cassie huddled in the corner, uncharacteristically quiet. Before we sign, Mark said, there's something you should know. The papers are final, Mark. We can get the money back. His voice cracked with desperation. Cassie found an investor? Another scheme? I didn't look up from the papers. Like the one that emptied Lucas's college fund? It's different this time, Cassie stepped forward. This guy guarantees. Stop. My pen hovered over the signature line. Just stop. Eve, Helen's voice carried that familiar note of manipulation. Think about Lucas. He needs his father. Lucas needs stability. Security. Parents he can trust. I met Mark's eyes. When was the last time you were that for him? Mark flinched. I can change. Like you changed when I found the empty safe? Or when I caught you at the casino? The pen pressed into the paper. Or maybe like you changed when Lucas saw you gambling away his future? That's not fair, Cassie protested. Fair? I turned to her. Was it fair when you sold my grandmother's pearls? When you convinced Mark to empty our accounts for your system? I was sick. I needed help. And now Lucas needs help. He needs therapy to deal with what you've done. Both of you. I signed the first page. But unlike you, he'll get it. Please, Mark reached for the papers. One more chance. I pulled them back. There's something you should know too. I withdrew an envelope from my bag. The police found security footage from Paradise Casino. They're very interested in how stolen property ended up in their pawn shop. The color drained from Cassie's face. Helen stopped pacing. You wouldn't, Mark whispered. Sign the papers. Both of you leave us alone. Or I press charges. That's blackmail, Helen snapped. That's justice. I pushed the papers toward Mark. Choose now. Your sister's freedom or your son's future. The room fell silent except for the scratch of pen on paper. As Mark signed, Lucas's words from last night echoed in my head. I'm glad you're not like them, Mom. I'm glad you're strong. It's done, Mark pushed the papers back, defeated. I stood, gathering my things. At the door, I turned back one last time. Cassie, get help. Real help. Mark. Be better. If not for me, then for Lucas. I left them there, surrounded by the wreckage of their choices. Sometimes revenge isn't about making others suffer, it's about refusing to suffer anymore yourself. Outside, the sun felt warmer somehow. Like it knew this wasn't an ending, but a beginning. For me. For Lucas. For the future they couldn't gamble away. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, tucked between bills and junk mail. I recognized Cassie's handwriting on the envelope, not addressed to me, but to Lucas. Can I read it? Lucas asked, homework spread across our new kitchen table in our new apartment. I hesitated, remembering promises broken, trust shattered. But Lucas wasn't asking for permission, he was asking for trust. Your choice, buddy. He opened it carefully, like defusing a bomb. His eyes moved across the pages, expression shifting from guarded to something softer. She's in rehab, he said finally. Real rehab, not like before. I set down my coffee. How do you feel about that? Good, I think. He folded the letter with precise movements. She says she's sorry. That she knows sorry isn't enough, but she's trying to be better. Through the window, I could see the playground where Lucas now spent afternoons with friends instead of hiding in his room. The sound of children laughing drifted up, a reminder of what normal should sound like. Mom? Lucas's voice pulled me back. Dad called Helen yesterday. I heard him say he's getting help too. Something tight in my chest loosened slightly. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps its distant cousin, acceptance. The doorbell rang. A delivery man held a small package. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, lay my grandmother's pearls and a note. Found these at Paradise's pawn shop. Paid what I owed to get them back. See. Lucas touched the pearls gently. Can you tell me about great-grandma again? We sat on the couch, the pearls between us like a bridge to better times. As I told him stories about my grandmother, her strength, her dignity, her ability to forgive without forgetting, I realized something profound. Revenge hadn't given me what I wanted. It wasn't the ultimatums or the threats or even the divorce that had finally broken through. It was the simple act of refusing to let others define our worth that had changed everything. Mom? Lucas held up the pearls. Maybe we could save these. For when I have kids someday. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Saw the wisdom in his eyes that hardship had planted there, but also the hope that refused to die. I think great-grandma would like that. Outside, the playground echoed with laughter. Inside, we held on to pearls of wisdom earned the hard way, that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and that family, real family, is something you choose to be every single day. The pearls gleamed in the afternoon light, no longer just jewelry, but a promise of better things to come.